Hi everyone, Alex here. Recently returned from a great trip to the Bahamas and Tiger Beach, and actually that's where all these photos come from. Actually, I've only been home a couple of days, but there's a lot of pictures to process, so I thought I'd make a stab. And there's 42 pictures in this collection to show you and to talk about as I run through them down the trip. I guess a sort of an opening comment I'd say is that when you go to a destination with relatively few species to photograph, but fantastic photo opportunities as Tiger Beach in the Bahamas provides, I would always approach that by ahead of time thinking about the types of shots I want to create, and then through the trip try and create those shots. I would definitely also add that I would sort of kind of approach the photography, not trying to get every single shot on the first day, but to kind of work at the type of images that the particular location on that day, the particular light and conditions on that day make most optimal. And rather than snap haphazardly, I think these sort of trips really reward preparation and optimization. So you really set everything up to get the best possible shot of a particular scenario, a particular setup. And then when you've got the shots that you want from that situation, you can then move on and work other opportunities. And so hopefully you'll kind of get some of that as I talk about these shots individually. These are just some of the ones that caught my eye. I haven't sorted the folders out at all. I think I shot about 6,500 pictures on the trip, and these are just some that as I was kind of downloading them, I'd kind of gone, oh, that's a nice one. I'll put a star against that one so I can find it later, and then I pulled these out just to process quickly first. I always like to process a few pictures quickly from a trip if I can, simply because it means that those pictures are at least safe, and should I have a hard drive crash, well, at least I've got now 40 pictures from this trip, and if I lost everything, well, to be honest, if I've got 40 from the trip, that'd probably keep me going for a little while. So I think that's also a nice thing about processing them. It kind of relaxes you a bit. All these pictures are shot with Sony A1 camera, and with, well, the majority with the FCP lens, some with the WACP lens, but most with the FCP lens on the Sony and the Nauticam housing. Strobe wise, a couple of days I used the Retro Pro Max strobes, but the majority of the trip I shot with the Backscatter HF1. So hopefully that gives you some information on that. Camera settings, as always, are on the right hand side, and you can read those off and those sort of things as I go through the pictures. So on the first day of the trip, I was concentrating on getting photos of Vinny, who was doing the feeding for Epic Diving, and the sharks up close to the feeder. On the first day, a lot of the group weren't that keen to go that close to the action, so it's a good day for me to go close to the action and get these kind of more dive magazine-y type shots. So, sharks close to the lens, multiple tiger sharks in the frame, shark and person interactions is what I was after on that first day on the trip. And got a variety of those shots. I try and avoid the really kind of old school shark porn, mouth open type shots that a lot of people go for. I don't really, there's a couple in here, I do take them. I mean, they occasionally do sell, but I certainly don't want those pictures to dominate my output from a trip like this. So even though the focus of this day, or this first dives, was being close to the bait, because I knew that I was the only one who wanted to be that close to the action on the first day, as everyone was getting used to the sharks. I was trying to avoid anything too much all about teeth and mouths and that sort of thing. I mean, these pictures are going in that direction, but they're not the full mouth agape type image that you can get very easily. In fact, you just ask the feeder or Vinny when he feeds to pull the bait upwards towards the mouth's top lip, and it tends to make the shark really open its mouth right up. But I'm not very keen on that. I prefer shots like this, which again, show how amazing this interaction can be with very large predatory sharks very close to people, but not, I'm not trying to be able to tell that story without being all about teeth and that sort of thing. So those are those first few, and you can just have a quick look at the settings on those as I go through them. Next up, this is a shark coming in and bumping my dome, and this is taken just before it bumped into the dome. This was actually what they call a wild shark out there, so a shark that they don't know, that hasn't been fed before, and can be often quite unpredictable on the dives. And this one was quite boisterous, and it was coming in and bumping into my dome port. This is actually a repeat of a shot that I did last month or so in the Maldives where I was shooting tawny nurse sharks, and I used a very fast shutter speed. This is probably up at a 400th of a second, f/18, ISO 1160. So gone, very low on the ambient exposure. To get that dark background and just create this quite graphic image showing the shark. And just like this previous one where you can see all the ampuli of Lorenzini, the electrical sensors on the nose of the shark, you can see them again on the nurse shark here as well, which is quite cool about these shots. And you see all the scale patterns as well, though not as nicely as on those nurse sharks, which had really nice big scales, big denticles on them. Right, back to tigers. This is a pair of tigers coming in together. To take a picture like this, you just need to position yourself a little bit ahead of the bait crate, just the camera, and then you can get these nice clean shots of the sharks really coming in. They're not coming to me, they're coming to the bait crate, and as they get closer I tend to back away so they get free access to the bait. And a similar type of shot here with two of them coming in. And I just like the way that these two went off in separate directions. These, I think, this one is definitely WACP. I remember using WACP that day. And this is another one with the WACP. I kind of went back and forwards between the two. I think probably on this trip, well, definitely on this trip, I preferred the FCP, but it wasn't like a complete deal breaker. This is probably the most gratuitous mouth open feeding shot I did. And I like this one because it's shot with a long exposure, so it's a little bit different with the movement. I like the movement blur on Vinny's arm. I like the movement blur on the tail of the shark, and then the sharpness around the head, and you can see everything that's going on. You can obviously see the fish disappearing down the throat of the shark here. You can see just a little bit of fish, and they actually use very, very small amounts of fish. They usually take 5 or 6 pieces down on a dive to feed 5 or 6 tiger sharks, and this is no more than having a chocolate or something at Christmas for a human. It's not exactly making a big difference to their overall food intake, but it's enough to control the sharks and have safe, reliable encounters with them. The food is actually very important part of that. One of the other shark species that are in the area, the lemon sharks, I hadn't been to Tiger Beach for a number of years, and there were far less lemon sharks than I was used to in the past. But they are a really cool shark. They're a weird one to white balance because they don't actually have a kind of a white point on them. Even their light coloured areas are kind of a creamy yellow. So if you click on them and white balance them, you end up with very pink looking lemon sharks, which is kind of not their true colour. So for me, I always use the white balance of a similar shot of a tiger shark and then copy and paste that onto the subject. Actually, if you look at this one and then this one, you can see that they've got the same white balance, but the tiger shark looks nice and neutral, and the lemon shark looks all kind of yellowy greeny, which they are. And I prefer that to, that's the way I tend to process them. And when you can see again, and then there's another one of the tiger coming in. I think this one here, actually, maybe only one of the strobes fired on this one. I don't see much light from the left-hand strobes. It's probably as it got really close, only one of the strobes had recycled in time to shoot. But I quite like that effect of it just being lit sort of underneath on the face on this one. Settings-wise, generally shooting on quite low ISOs at Tiger Beach because it is quite bright there. Even though this was, I think, a bit more of a cloudier day, I'm up at f13, ISO 200, and a 1/250 second. I think these ones here was very bright, ISO 250, f13, 1/400th per second, which obviously these are all 400, 250, 400, just to keep a decent blue in such shallow, bright conditions. Now moving to a reef environment and doing some shots there. The tigers don't really shoot vertical pictures, but you obviously want a few in your portfolio. I felt this sponge gave me the chance to kind of work a vertical into the shots. This is just one of the tigers. This is they call this one Jitterbug publicly, coming around over this netted barrel sponge. Another tiger, different tiger, this one they call Bella, swimming through the reef here with some nice gorgonians and sponges. It's not the most amazing reef, but there's plenty of stuff on it, so you can work it into the pictures. This is another shot of the same shark just swimming over my head. Bit of a unflattering angle, but that's sort of a different picture for the portfolio, and at least another vertical, which is always hard to get into with these guys, unless you obviously crop when you've got one a little bit further off. These are some more shots of the sharks swimming through the reef, and actually the way we get them to swim over the reef is obviously we place the bait bucket up on the reef. And actually, if you look in the background here, you can probably see some. I thought that was a bait bucket, but it's, yeah, there it is. You can see just through the sea fan there, now in the centre of the frame, the bait bucket. And so you put the bait bucket on the reef, kind of hide it as much as you can, and then you'll get the sharks coming through the reef, and you get the chance to shoot tigers on the reef, which I always really like. I think it tells a really nice story of these as the sort of apex predator of these reef systems, preying on the other species. So yeah, I really like these reef shots. This is shot with the FCP as well, actually. It's cropped a little bit. I would say it's cropped about 20%, but cropped very little. And this is kind of going zoomed all the way in and getting the lens as close as I could to this eye of this lemon shark, and seeing how tight a shot I could take, which is quite a cool variation, but it really shows the flexibility of those zoom lenses, that you can cover all these bases in one go. And this is on the same dive, I suspect, all the way out the other end of the FCP, a big wide angle shot of a tiger cruising across the sand. I did a lot of these types of shots. I've not processed that many yet. There's maybe a couple more later on. Shooting the sharks in available light from quite a distance away, trying to capture the grandeur of the settings, that the place that they live, and try and put the sharks into their environment. And this picture here is done like that. It's a picture of a tiger like that taken without strobe, and to do a picture like this, you sort of make sure you're at the back of the group or at the edge of the group, and shoot obviously away from the food and the feeding, to get these lovely clean images of the sharks, which I think is really nice. Or you stay until other people have got out the water, or you get in first and take pictures like this. And I really like those more naturalistic shots. This is another lemon shark sleeping on the seabed. This one shot with single strobe on purpose, just to give that shadiness, that moodiness to the shape of the face on this dive, of this face of the shark, which I rather like. And again, you can see I've managed to get that yellowy greeny colour of the lemon shark, and not just simply white balanced here, where it's not actually white, and take away the colour of the shark. A tiger shark. This is an very old tiger shark called Emma, who's been at Tiger Beach for over 20 years. And she's really shows her age. She looks like a very old lady these days. Her tail is all sort of a bit mangled up, and her fins are all a bit tatty, and her body, she just looks really old. But she's still a big shark, not as big as when she was pregnant, when she was young, and she really felt like a submarine. But still a pretty big, sizable shark. And this is a picture of her just after she'd been fed. You can see, actually, if I zoom into the mouth here, you can see there's a little tiny bit of snapper or something inside her mouth that she's in the process of swallowing. And that's actually why she's got her mouth open, is she'd been fed by Deb, who's at the feed bucket you can see behind there. And she'd taken the food, and then she was just kind of reopening the mouth to kind of swallow it down just as she came past me. So I was able to get this shot here. More of those tigers in their environment shot. This one's got two tigers. I think the available light really shows up the stripes of tiger sharks better as well. So that's why I like this shot. This one, annoyingly though, has got a small shark sucker or remora attached right on his mat and on his nose. So he's kind of got a bit of a funny mark on his nose there, just under his nose. But apart from that, very nice. And I quite like that there's a second tiger in the distance on this one, which just completes the composition. More in that vein of, I'll just get you the settings of these, but they're all very similar on these trips. The light, if the sun was out, these were the settings. It wasn't really a big deal. This is a picture, a similar picture, trying to place the tiger in its environment, shot with available light. I think sometimes if you over white balance and over dehaze these shots, the water can go very dark, almost black. So I always try and keep some life in the water behind the sharks, not make it go just that dark purpley blue that the white balance alone does. I tend to tweak the blues afterwards a bit in processing. A pair of tigers, these ones lit with strobe, cruising through in the coming through. I like their two shadows on the seabed. And I like that I was able to get strobe nicely onto both of these two. They're actually quite close together, I think. They'd kind of been running together and then they were almost avoiding each other. They're very careful, the sharks, very considered when they move. And they pay attention to where each other are. And even they'll veer off if one's coming in on the bait and a nurse shark a nurse shark or a lemon shark or a reef shark swims across its path. The tigers will nearly always deviate, despite it only being a much smaller shark, and they'll go round and come round again. Another tiger cruising over the seagrass. Seagrass is one of my favourite places to photograph them. It's such a pretty environment with this manatee grass all over the seabed. Gives a lovely green colour. And this shark had these two little mackerel or whatever they are accompanying it through, which was nice to see. I love also that tiger sharks have really nice stripes on their dorsal fins as well, which this picture shows. A cloudier day this time, and so it was actually a rainy day actually, and the dark conditions allowed me to try some longer exposures. So here down to 1/10 of a second and do a panning shot to capture that feeling of movement of the shark. I like this one because he's got these three little fish on his shoulder up here, and nice eye contact from the shark. And obviously some good teeth as well. But I like the movement blur. This one's shot with probably Vinny right behind. But because of the movement, I think the diver, really is not a distraction in a picture like this. I mean, you might like it completely clean, but I have to say, I think a lot of the streaking is actually created by having someone behind there. And this is a similar one. This one, I think is Emma again, actually. And this is another one taken with panning, zooming and camera spinning, just trying to put as much movement through the camera as possible, because although it's probably not as slow as shutter speed, it is 1/10 again, but just trying to get a lot of movement into the picture. You can see on this side of the frame the blur is streaking, and this side it's really bent. There's a kind of a 90-degree change in it. So I was obviously zooming the camera and spinning the camera at the same time, and it's in part of the picture it's very much like a pan, but up here the position of rotation in the frame is not obviously in the center, so there's different amounts of blur in different parts of the picture, which I like. Another shark cruising through, and these will take on the same dive, probably very similar settings again. This one's a little bit slower, 1/8 of a second, panning. This is just a straight panning shot, panning in the direction of movement of the shark, creating this blurring backwards and creating an impactful image. And the same technique again, probably the same, very similar, or the same settings. Pictures taken, I'm sure, just a few minutes apart. So ISO 100, f16 and 1/8, ISO 100, f16 and 1/8. So yeah, same settings, just two different shots of they're actually different tigers on different passes coming through and enable me to get some shots. Just another shot of a tiger coming in for a bump. This one isn't opening its mouth. This is a shark that's got a slightly, it's got a hook damage or fishing damage on this side of its jaw, so its mouth doesn't close properly. So you can always see those teeth at the edge of the mouth, which is I think why I like this shot, even though it's not a symmetrical bump. I like that you can see those things. Some more shots of a shark coming in. These are two shots of the same sequence. This guy's actually got a little pilot fish, or a little jack or something on his nose. When he gets a bit closer, you can see it a little bit better. There he is. But I like those two shots, kind of that classic Mercedes emblem front on shark picture that always looks good. And these are shot with either the FCP or the WACP. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure FCP. But zoom right in. That one's at 60mm. And the next one, it's still at 60mm. So yeah. And so it's just the change in the shark getting closer, of course. Right. Back out the wide end. An available light shot of the seagrass meadows and the reef shark, and obviously I've always loved the shadows of the reef sharks on the seabed. And back over the seagrass with a nice tiger. Really like the eye contact in this one. Tigers have really lovely eyes, but because they have this dark pigment, this kind of V-shaped dark pigment behind their eye, you don't always see the eye very clearly, and then the pupil of the eye is surrounded by a very, very dark brown iris area, and so it really disguises the whole eye. So it's always nice when you can see the eye in detail. So when you get a nice close pass, you can really reveal that. A zoom blur shot of a grouper. This grouper, I think it's called Cookie, and he's a quite aggressive grouper that steals food from the sharks constantly, bites divers, and generally causes trouble on the dives. But he was very well behaved on our trip, but I know him by reputation, or her by reputation, and I thought I'd do a zoom blur picture to show off this terrifying monster of a grouper with kind of dramatic lighting. So yeah, shot zooming the camera on a 13th of a second. I'm zooming from wide to tight, but with front curtain flash. So at the beginning of the exposure, my flash goes off, lights the grouper, and then I zoom in during the exposure, and then sort of the shadow of the grouper then grows around the grouper during the picture, and that's what's creating the shadowing around the grouper. And then that zooming also streaks detail around the edges of the frame, so you can see the surfaces turn to streaks and parts of the seagrass at the bottom have turned to streaks as well. Okay, last few now. So as I said at the beginning, whenever I do a trip like this, I'm always looking to create a diverse portfolio of pictures. And so sort of towards the end of the trip, I'm thinking, all right, what haven't I done? What haven't I got? So I did concentrate a little bit more on the reef sharks towards the end of the trip. Thought, oh, it's such a great opportunity for the reef sharks. And so I'll try some different shots of those. These are some available light shots of reef sharks. I really love the shadows that they create on the sand, so available light is a great way to show that. And in such beautiful water conditions, I mean, it was glassy calm this day, beautiful viz, very, very easy way to take underwater photos. You can see the beautiful sun rays coming down through the surface, and these are some more shots of sharks and shadows and lovely water. You can see how nice it was above the surface, because obviously this is an above the water shot of the reef sharks hanging around the back of the boat, hoping for some scraps to end up in the water. And yeah, just a nice picture of them in the lovely blue water and those fantastic little tropical clouds running along the horizon. This is one of my favourite shots. This day, because we had such nice conditions, we really targeted going into the shallowest water possible. And it meant we actually got less tigers on this day, but it meant we did have some really, really beautiful sunbeams coming into the water. And this is a shot trying to capture the beauty of the water, the beauty of the place, and then obviously have a tiger shark in the picture, but not too dominant in the picture, so that you are inviting the viewer to appreciate how beautiful this habitat is. The same sort of settings as before. A little bit lower on the ISO, and not as fast on the shutter speed on this particular one as earlier in the week. And taken on the same dive, so taken on very similar settings. And this picture here is of a Caribbean reef shark in front of the sun. Very, very similar shot to this one. But now that the shark is that much closer to the lens, so it just creates a different look, a different feel. And the reef sharks, they are very pretty. Caribbean reef sharks are very pretty, very well proportioned sharks. So it's always very nice to shoot them. Right, that was a nice run through. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm just going to scroll back through them in case there were any that you wanted to see settings for. And I have more and more of these sharks to process. I don't know how many I'll actually get around to processing. But there's loads more sharks to come. And to be honest, I've touched very few of my shots taken this year. And indeed the second half of last year. So I think I have quite a few reviews coming up with some really diverse mixes of pictures. But thanks for watching. Bye-bye.